They laughed at you, didn't they? They shook their heads, rolled their eyes, whispered behind your back. They called you unrealistic, delusional, even crazy. Every time you spoke your vision, every time you explained your dream, every time you declared what you knew was coming, they doubted you. They said it would never happen. They said you were aiming too high. They said you were chasing illusions. And yet, here you are. What they mocked yesterday has started unfolding today. What they dismissed as foolishness has become undeniable proof. They called you crazy, until it happened. That moment when your words start becoming reality is both powerful and painful. Powerful because it validates every ounce of faith you carried in silence. Painful because you remember how lonely it felt to stand in belief when no one else could see it. The chosen ones always walk through that valley of doubt. Before the world applauds you, it laughs at you. Before they call you wise, they call you foolish. Before they celebrate your vision, they mock your faith. And that process is not a coincidence. It is the refining fire that separates the chosen from the ordinary. Think about the strength it took to hold on to your vision while people called you names. They didn't understand the depth of what you saw. They couldn't comprehend the weight of what you felt. They thought your persistence was madness, when in truth, it was clarity. You saw something they couldn't see yet, and because their sight was limited, they labeled your faith as insanity. But the chosen ones are always ahead of their time. They sense shifts before they happen. They feel doors opening before the hinges move. They prepare for blessings before they arrive. And that foresight always looks like madness to those still blind to it. And yet, every time they doubted you, you kept going. Every word of criticism could have been the moment you gave up, but instead, it became fuel. You let their disbelief sharpen your discipline. You let their laughter strengthen your resolve. You let their rejection push you deeper into alignment with what you knew was true. And now, as things begin to unfold, the same voices that called you crazy are watching in silence, unable to explain how your faith turned into fact. This is the paradox of being chosen. You must endure the misunderstanding before you enjoy the manifestation. People cannot comprehend the unseen, so they mock what they do not understand. They call your intuition foolish until your intuition becomes undeniable. They call your vision impossible until your vision becomes inevitable. They call your dreams fantasies until your dreams stand in front of them, real and undeniable. And when that happens, the laughter stops, the mocking fades, and the same mouths that doubted you are forced to admit that you were right all along. But don't let their disbelief make you bitter. Their doubt was part of your journey. Without it, you wouldn't have developed the resilience you carry today. Without it, you wouldn't have learned to rely on your own conviction instead of external approval. Without it, you wouldn't have sharpened your faith into the unshakable force it is now. Their rejection was the fire, but you were the gold. Their laughter was the storm, but you were the tree that grew deeper roots because of it. And now, the fruit you carry is undeniable. So when you look back at the names they called you, don't see shame, see proof. Proof that you had the courage to believe before the evidence appeared. Proof that you were willing to look foolish in pursuit of what you knew was meant for you. Proof that you carried the strength to endure being misunderstood, so that one day, you could be celebrated. They called you crazy, but now they call you strong. They called you delusional, but now they call you visionary. They called you foolish, but now they call you chosen. Before we go any further, I need you to pause for a moment and realize something important. You didn't come across this video by accident. You are here because this message is meant for you, right now, at this exact season of your life. That's why I ask you to watch this video all the way to the end, because the final part carries powerful truths prepared only for those who are ready to step into their next chapter. And while you're here, take a moment to write your warmest wishes in the comments and add the number 777 beside them. This is not just a simple action, it is an act of faith, a signal to the universe that you are ready to see your wishes manifest. By doing this, you are declaring that you believe, that you trust, and that you are aligned with what's coming your way. And don't forget to subscribe, because this is not just a channel. It's a gathering place for chosen ones like you, those who dare to believe even when the world calls them crazy. Now let's go deeper. They laughed when you shared your vision. They rolled their eyes when you described your dreams. They whispered that you were out of touch with reality, too bold, too different, too impossible. They thought your hope was weakness, and your determination was madness. But what they didn't know was that the very things they mocked were the exact things building your strength. They thought your belief was foolish, but it was your belief that carried you through storms they could never survive. They thought your vision was a fantasy, but that vision kept you moving when everything around you said stop. They thought your persistence was strange, but that persistence turned into progress while they stood still. The truth is, they had to call you crazy, because to admit that you might be right would mean they had to confront their own limitations. It's easier to laugh at someone else's dream than to face your own fear of dreaming. It's easier to label someone delusional than to admit you gave up on yourself too soon. It's easier to mock faith than to admit you've lost it. So when they called you names, when they dismissed your vision, it was never about you. It was about the mirror you held up to them. You reminded them of what they let slip away, and that was too heavy for them to face. But while they laughed, you built. While they doubted, you kept going. While they dismissed you, you planted seeds in silence. You endured the loneliness of being misunderstood, the sting of being called foolish, the ache of walking a path no one else could see. But you never let it stop you. And now, the seeds you planted are breaking through the ground. What once was invisible is becoming undeniable. The same people who called you crazy are starting to watch in silence, realizing that what you spoke is becoming reality. And let's be honest, it hurt, didn't it? To believe so deeply and yet be surrounded by doubt. To know something in your soul and yet be laughed at by the people closest to you. To carry a vision so heavy it kept you awake at night, only to hear others call it impossible. That kind of pain cuts deep because it isolates you. It forces you to stand alone in faith when you would have given anything for someone to stand with you. But that isolation was not wasted. It was training. It was teaching you that the power of your vision doesn't depend on applause. It depends on alignment. Every chosen one must go through this stage. The stage where belief looks like madness. The stage where faith feels like loneliness. The stage where your vision is too big for others to understand. But it is in that stage that your roots grow deep, that your resilience is forged, that your clarity is sharpened. And when the manifestation finally comes, no one can deny it. They may not apologize for doubting you, but their silence speaks louder than their laughter ever did. So when you hear their whispers, when you remember their mocking, don't carry bitterness, carry proof. Proof that your conviction was stronger than their ridicule. Proof that your vision was greater than their limitation. Proof that what you carried in your spirit was not fantasy, it was destiny. They called you crazy, but destiny called you chosen. They never saw the nights you stayed awake, replaying every doubt in your head, questioning whether you were truly foolish for believing so strongly. They never saw the weight you carried when everyone laughed, and yet something inside of you refused to let go. They only saw the surface, the courage to keep speaking when they thought you should be silent, the determination to keep moving when they thought you should quit. But what they didn't see was the war inside your heart. The clash between doubt and conviction, between fear and faith. You weren't crazy, you were committed. And commitment often looks like madness to those who live in hesitation. When you spoke about what was coming, people shook their heads. They thought you were chasing fantasies, when really you were following signs they couldn't see. You felt the energy. You sensed the shift. You knew the ground beneath you was moving toward something greater. But because their eyes were fixed only on the present, they mocked what you said about the future. The chosen ones are always called crazy in the beginning, because foresight is invisible to those who live only in hindsight. Think of how many times you almost stayed quiet. How many times you thought, maybe I should stop talking about it. Maybe I should stop dreaming out loud. Maybe I should keep this vision to myself. And yet, you couldn't. The fire inside of you wouldn't let you stay silent. Every time they mocked, every time they doubted, every time they called you names, the vision still rose within you. You carried something too powerful to be silenced by ridicule. And though it hurt, though it isolated you, though it made you feel like you were standing against the world, you kept going. And that's why, when it finally happened, their mouths fell silent. Suddenly, the laughter stopped. Suddenly, the same people who mocked you didn't know what to say. The reality they thought would never arrive was standing right in front of them. They had no explanation. They couldn't understand how the one they dismissed became the one who proved them wrong. They couldn't comprehend how the crazy dream turned into undeniable truth. That silence, that shift, was your victory. You didn't need to shout. You didn't need to say, "I told you so." The proof spoke for itself. But even in your victory, remember this. The point was never to prove them wrong. The point was to prove yourself right. The point was to honor the vision you carried, to stay faithful to what you knew, to hold on to your truth when no one else could see it. Their doubt wasn't your enemy, it was your training. Their laughter wasn't your defeat, it was your preparation. Every chosen one must walk through the season of being misunderstood, because it builds the resilience needed for the season of manifestation. Without their disbelief, you wouldn't have grown into the strength you now carry. And let's be clear, you weren't crazy. What you had was courage. Courage to believe without evidence, to build without applause, to keep moving without a map. That courage separated you from the ordinary, because ordinary people wait until they see it to believe it. The chosen ones believe it until they see it. And that difference is what transforms dreams into reality. That's why they called you crazy. Because they couldn't understand the kind of faith that keeps building even in silence, that keeps moving even in darkness, that keeps standing even when mocked. Now that it's happening, their perspective has changed, but your journey hasn't. You've learned something they never will, that every no, every laugh, every insult was fuel, that every lonely night was a seed, that every step forward in doubt was training. And now that the harvest has come, you carry not only the proof of your vision, but the strength of your survival. They see the result, but they don't understand the cost. And that's okay. They don't need to. The result speaks for itself, and you are living proof. So when you remember the names they called you, when you remember the laughter that stung, don't carry bitterness. Carry gratitude. Because without their disbelief, you wouldn't have built this kind of fire. Without their doubt, you wouldn't have sharpened this kind of clarity. Without their mocking, you wouldn't have discovered the depth of your conviction. They thought they were breaking you, but they were building you. They thought they were silencing you, but they were strengthening you. They thought they were mocking you, but they were making you undeniable. And now, as the reality unfolds, you must keep moving forward. Because this is only the beginning. They called you crazy until it happened. But after it happens, what will they say next? They will watch in awe as you keep rising, as you keep proving that destiny was never a fantasy. They will realize that the one they doubted has become the one they cannot ignore. And you will keep walking, keep building, keep believing. Because being chosen is not about one victory. It's about a lifetime of proving that faith always becomes fact. They called you crazy because it was easier than admitting that your courage made them uncomfortable. It was easier to mock you than to confront the smallness of their own thinking. They couldn't understand why you refused to live inside the limits they accepted for themselves. You became a threat to their comfort zone simply by refusing to stay in one. And so they labeled you. That label, crazy, was not about you. It was about their fear of what your vision forced them to see. The chosen ones have always been misunderstood. History is filled with examples of people who saw something before others could grasp it. Innovators, dreamers, leaders, all were ridiculed before they were respected. The pattern never changes. The moment you carry a vision larger than the present, the world will call you mad. But when that vision finally takes shape, the world will change its tune. You've experienced this yourself. The same voices that doubted you now speak with hesitation. They cannot deny what is unfolding, even if they never admit their laughter once stung. But here's what matters. You endured the space between the laughter and the manifestation. That is the hardest space to survive. It's the space where nothing makes sense, where evidence is absent, where only faith keeps you moving. Many give up in that space because the noise of doubt drowns out the whisper of destiny. But you didn't. You held on. You kept walking. You kept believing. And because you did, the promise that once seemed impossible is now undeniable. What they didn't realize is that their disbelief was part of your preparation. Every insult toughened your resolve. Every whisper trained your focus. Every rejection built your resilience. They thought they were weakening you, but they were strengthening you. They thought they were silencing you, but they were forcing you to find your own voice. They thought they were pushing you out, but they were pushing you deeper into purpose. This is the paradox of being chosen. Even the negativity works in your favor. Even their doubt becomes fuel for your destiny. Think of how many times you stood alone in your vision. How many times you carried something so heavy that no one else could understand it. You had no validation, no applause, no confirmation, just the quiet conviction inside your spirit that wouldn't let you quit. That conviction is what separates the chosen from the ordinary. Ordinary people need evidence before they believe. The chosen believe until the evidence appears, and that belief, no matter how foolish it looks to others, is what creates miracles. They called you crazy, but what they were really seeing was your courage. They saw your willingness to risk being misunderstood in exchange for being authentic. They saw your boldness to dream when everyone else settled. They saw your faith in the unseen, and because they couldn't handle it, they mocked it. But courage doesn't need permission, and faith doesn't need validation. You kept going without their approval, and that is why you stand where you are today. And now that it's happening, you must understand something important. This is only the beginning. Being chosen doesn't mean proving people wrong once. It means living a life that consistently defies the limits others try to place on you. They will doubt again. They will whisper again. They will question again. But you already know the pattern. Today's doubt becomes tomorrow's proof. Today's mockery becomes tomorrow's silence. Today's rejection becomes tomorrow's recognition. And with every cycle, your resilience grows stronger. So don't waste energy on bitterness. Don't waste time replaying their laughter. Let their doubt become a reminder of your difference. Let their disbelief become a marker of your growth. Because the truth is, if people aren't calling you crazy, maybe your vision isn't big enough. Maybe you've stopped stretching, stopped believing, stopped daring. The chosen ones are always called crazy because they always carry something that doesn't fit inside the box of ordinary thinking. To be chosen is to be misunderstood until it happens. So wear their words like armor. Let their mockery roll off your back. Let their whispers remind you that you are walking a road most people will never dare to travel. And when the promise becomes reality, when the unseen becomes undeniable, when the impossible becomes your testimony, you won't need to defend yourself. Your life will be the proof. Your resilience will be the evidence. Your victory will be the answer. They called you crazy, but now they have no choice but to call you chosen. They shook their heads because your vision didn't match their logic. They dismissed your faith because it stretched beyond their limited imagination. To them, your persistence was strange, your boldness was unsettling, and your dreams were simply too big. That's why they laughed. That's why they called you crazy. But what they didn't know was that your so-called madness was really alignment. Your conviction wasn't a wild guess. It was a quiet certainty born from something deeper. And that depth is what separated you all along. You see, chosen ones are always called names before they're called leaders. People are quick to label what they don't understand. When you kept believing without evidence, it made them nervous because it revealed their lack of faith. When you kept preparing for a future they couldn't see, it unsettled them because it revealed their lack of vision. And when you kept moving forward despite every delay, it exposed their tendency to quit too soon. That exposure was uncomfortable. It was easier to call you crazy than to admit their own fear. And yet through it all, you kept building. You kept showing up. You kept speaking words that carried life, even when no one echoed them back. They didn't realize that while they were laughing, you were planting. While they were mocking, you were watering. While they were doubting, you were growing. The harvest you now carry wasn't luck. It was discipline. It wasn't coincidence. It was faith. And now that the fruits are visible, the same people who doubted can no longer explain away what they see. But here's the truth. The journey wasn't easy. Behind every victory was a battle no one else witnessed. Behind every smile was a tear they never saw. Behind every breakthrough was a breakdown you had to survive in silence. That silence was the training ground. That loneliness was the classroom. That misunderstanding was the fire. And though it hurt, though it made you question yourself, though it left you isolated, it also refined you into someone unstoppable. Their laughter became the background noise to your destiny. Now that things are unfolding, some of them have gone quiet. Notice how the ones who called you crazy have nothing to say now. Notice how the ones who dismissed your dream now avoid the subject. Notice how the ones who mocked your faith now watch from a distance. That silence is not empty. It's full of recognition. They may not admit it, but they see it. They see that what you carried was never a fantasy. They see that your so-called madness has become undeniable reality. But remember this, your story is not about proving them wrong. It's about proving yourself faithful. If your motivation was revenge, it would have ended when the proof arrived. But because your motivation was purpose, this is only the beginning. You've already seen what happens when belief outlasts ridicule. Imagine what more will happen as you continue. Imagine the doors that will open, the opportunities that will unfold, the lives that will be changed. If this much has already happened, what could possibly stop the rest from unfolding? They called you crazy, but now you've become the evidence that faith works. You've become the living testimony that persistence pays off. You've become the reminder that dreams are not foolish when they're aligned with destiny. And while they may never apologize, while they may never admit they were wrong, their silence is enough. Their watching eyes are enough. Their unease is enough. Because deep down, they know you were right all along. And so you must keep going. Don't slow down to savor their silence. Don't waste time demanding recognition. Don't let their change of tone distract you from your mission. Because your journey is not about them. It's about the fulfillment of what you were chosen to carry. And the more you walk in alignment, the more undeniable it becomes. You were never crazy. You were called. And now that it's happening, your life itself is the answer. They thought your silence meant defeat. They thought your distance meant surrender. They thought your refusal to explain yourself meant you had nothing left to say. But in reality, your silence was strategy. While they were busy mocking, you were busy moving. While they wasted energy gossiping, you conserved energy building. And now, as the evidence unfolds, it is clear. You were never crazy. You were consistent. You weren't lost. You were focused. And that focus has turned into fruit they can't deny. This is the stage where people shift. Some who doubted you will try to attach themselves to you now, as if they believed in you all along. Others will pretend they never mocked you, rewriting history in their minds. And still others will remain silent, uneasy with the truth staring them in the face. But none of this matters. What matters is that you never let their voices become louder than your conviction. You trusted the vision inside of you more than the opinions outside of you. And that is why you stand where you are today. Think about how powerful that is. Most people collapse under the weight of external doubt. Most people abandon their path the moment they are misunderstood. But you kept walking, even when you had no applause. You kept building, even when no one offered validation. You kept believing, even when evidence was nowhere to be seen. That is the hallmark of the chosen ones. Their faith is not dependent on external confirmation. Their faith itself becomes the confirmation. They called you crazy, but what they were really revealing was their own fear. Your boldness forced them to see how small their own thinking was. Your resilience forced them to confront how quickly they gave up on themselves. Your courage made them aware of their own hesitation. And because they couldn't face that truth, they projected it onto you. They didn't call you crazy because you were wrong. They called you crazy because you were right too soon. And now, as what you declared begins to manifest, the proof itself speaks louder than anything else. You don't need to remind them of their laughter. You don't need to demand apologies. You don't need to justify yourself anymore. The outcome is the testimony. The reality is the answer. The unfolding of your vision is the loudest "I told you so" you could ever speak. And it requires no bitterness, no anger, no pride, just peace. Because when destiny speaks, all other voices fade. But here is something even more important. Don't stop here. This is not the final destination. This is a checkpoint. Too many people think the manifestation is the end, when in truth it's the beginning of a new chapter. You are not here just to prove people wrong. You are here to build something bigger than yourself. You are here to inspire, to awaken, to shift atmospheres, to spark courage in others who have been silenced by doubt. Your story is bigger than their laughter. It is bigger than their labels. It is bigger than their fear. This is why you must keep walking. If their doubt didn't stop you, their silence shouldn't either. If their mocking didn't kill your vision, their recognition shouldn't distract you from it. Because your purpose is not tied to their approval. Your destiny doesn't depend on their applause. You were chosen to keep moving, regardless of the noise, regardless of the crowd, regardless of who stays or leaves. And as you do, you will continue to prove that faith is stronger than fear, that vision is stronger than doubt, and that purpose is stronger than opinion. So let them watch. Let them whisper. Let them wrestle with the reality they once denied. You don't have to answer them. Your life is the answer. You don't have to defend yourself. Your resilience defends you. You don't have to prove your worth. The unfolding of your destiny already has. They called you crazy, but what they really did was confirm that you were chosen. And chosen ones always look foolish, until it happens. They called you crazy, but deep down you always knew that the day would come when what you carried in silence would stand in the open. That day has arrived. The proof is here. The vision has become reality, and the voices that mocked you no longer matter. You don't need to remind them. You don't need to fight them. You don't need to justify yourself anymore. The results speak louder than every laugh, every whisper, every doubt. What once looked like madness now looks like destiny fulfilled. This is the moment you realize that every tear was worth it. Every lonely night, every painful rejection, every insult that stung. All of it was part of the shaping. It was not wasted. It was preparing you to stand in this very season. And now you can look back with gratitude, not bitterness. Because their disbelief forced you to believe harder. Their rejection forced you to stand taller. Their mocking forced you to go deeper. What they meant for harm became fuel, and that fuel carried you here. But even as you stand in this moment of proof, remember, this is not the end of your journey. This is the beginning of a greater chapter.